Hey YouTube, Amanda here on behalf of Core. And before we get into today's video, I'd first like to congratulate Core member Angel Ascencio for taking YCS San Diego. If you'd like to see his deck list, it's in the blog in the description below. Also, there's going to be a ruling update. In a previous video, I talked about a Sangan and Transmigration Prophecy ruling, that it was the way it was ruled at Konami events. They have actually changed it. For those of you who do not already know, I want to make sure it's covered at least in a video segment. Previously, if you were to activate something like Transmigration Prophecy before grave triggering effects like Sangan or any of the Mermail cards were to trigger in grave and return them to the deck, or their effects would not trigger. So if you were to discard some Mermail cards to special summon a Megalo, and then in response to revealing the Megalo to special summon it, you chain Transmigration, put those back to deck, it wouldn't work. Now it's been re-ruled, that's no longer the case, and if you were to activate Transmigration or Foolish Return or something like that and return those cards to the deck, they still will trigger later on. So that's the ruling update, and now onto the meat of the video. This is something I really wanted to discuss. A lot of people are worrying about prophecies, and prophecies were very dominant in Japan. They were pretty much one of the only things that topped, alongside random stuff like Fire Fist, Water, and of course Evil Swarms. But prophecies was one of the most dominant things. It was just pretty much a clear-cut meta, to the point where people were even considering putting a Drolling Lockbird into the main to stand a chance. But we didn't really see Elemental Dragons at all, and the only Elemental Dragons we did see in decks were really just Dragoonides. They would have the Tempest Storm Dragon in the deck, and it was only until around March 16th, when the promotional pack B came out, that we started seeing dragons pop up, and they popped up fast. And so these were pure elemental dragon builds. And how these work was, there's usually one of two directions you can go in. You put all of the elemental dragons in, and I mean all of them, you know, usually 3 blasters, 3 burners, etc. You could obviously change up the ratios. Usually people ran like 2 each of the baby elemental dragons, the ones that came in the promotional packs, and then 2 to usually 3 of all of the main guys. Now, the deck really didn't top anything before then. It didn't pop up at all when they didn't have all of those baby dragons. They really needed them for the consistency, and with those added in, they were able to play stuff like Super Rejuvenations. They could pretty much just go turn 1 Dragossack instantaneously. And the one of two directions that you can go with the build is you can choose to run a Lad build or not. So in a build that you don't run Lad, you pretty much just run all of the elemental dragons and then some hand traps. And then in the build that you do run Lad, you throw in Eclipse Wyverns, and then you throw in Lad. And what that allows you access to is, if you open up an Eclipse Wyvern, you're guaranteed to bring out a Lad that turn, because you will always have a little baby dragon to discard the Eclipse Wyvern with, which will allow you to search out that Lad, and then you banish that Eclipse Wyvern for one of your elemental dragon effects. And then you have 2 elemental dragons on the field at that point, then you just sack for Lad. So those are the 2 builds that you do usually see. Prophecy was still pretty much the predominant deck, and then it got to the point where elemental dragons just completely overtook the meta, and we're seeing more elemental dragons than anything right now in the OCG meta. We're seeing a little bit of prophecy. We're barely seeing, actually, Evil Swarms, which I was very, very surprised about this. They still do take events, and don't get me wrong, matchup is pretty difficult, but they have a very hard time with your opponent going first, the opponent being the elemental dragon player, and then just going Dragossack turn 1 or Lad turn 1. They have like no recoveries from that, and the deck very consistently so does, so it's very rare to see the dragon player not instantly go into that. They do it even more easily than Ophion. And then if they open up Gold Sark at all, which they play 3 of, they have a way of getting Blast or Burner to hand to pop the Ophion, so you need sufficient protection to get over that. Luckily, it's easier to make Ophion within those 2 turns if they don't have an extra fire than it is for them to pop your Ophion, but like I said, dragons are still dominating, so I thought that was really interesting. But the thing about the OCG meta is we're probably going to have developments in our own meta before we obviously see dragons. It's clear cut. We still have people that have plenty of faith in Evil Swarms and stuff like that, so we're going to see, pretty much at the beginning of Tachyon, an even amount of people trying out like elemental dragons, prophecies, and maybe other rogue decks, because they might think that they have a working formula. But what's going to happen is, like it happened in the OCG meta, is people are going to kind of catch on. Elemental dragons are essentially the most consistent you can get a deck. It's so consistent to the point where you can actually main, and people haven't done this in the OCG, main things like Droll and Lockbird, just because it has synergy, it's a win, so you can banish it with Tempest, it's so easy. and also it pretty much shuts down stuff like Prophecy, and it's actually even good against things like the Mirror Match because you can drop it and then stop your opponent from adding extra cards in his hand to cycle back through. Once he gets his Dragon Search effects off, he can only pretty much get one off, and also stop the Super Rejuvenation at the end phase. Pretty much what Elemental Dragons have become in the OCG is just expecting the Mirror Match. It's expecting the Mirror Match so much that they're citing really strange cards like Obelisk the Tormentor, because once you drop your Obelisk, the deck has a very hard time getting over that. Pretty much their only play to get over that is Black Rose Dragon, and the deck does main Triple Veiler, Triple Max C, etc., so they kind of have an easy job of getting over that. So it's kind of funny to see. I'm definitely interested in seeing what's going to be on the TCG exclusive list, and this is going to be the only determining factor that's going to really make our meta different from the OCGs. Usually our metas differ quite a bit, but that's because we get exclusives like Tour Guide, we get exclusives like Wind Up Shark, and those are just meta-changing cards that obviously make us differentiate from the OCG. But right now, the cards that are topping in the OCG are all cards that we are going to get in Tachyon, and if those baby dragons come on the import list, then our meta is going to pretty much form in the same way the OCGs has. There's nothing you can really do to counter Elemental Dragons aside from playing them yourself. So it's going to be quite interesting. I'm hoping for something that's going to be on the import list that might change that up. So my question to you guys, of course, is do you think we're going to get a exclusive that's going to change the game for us and differentiate it from the OCG meta? And do you guys think that those baby dragons are going to be on the import list? Because that import list is quite long on Tachyon, and my guess is it's going to be on there, and we're going to have to deal with this crazy format that's going to be post-Tachyon. As far as coupon codes go, I have an Infernity article up if you guys want to take a look at that. It might be something to consider playing pre-Tachyon. It might be something that is actually worth looking into to playing at New Jersey. And if you want to enter a coupon code in, it's going to be Infernity44, and that's going to give you a 10% discount on all Yu-Gi-Oh! Singles. My name's Amanda. I hope this video has helped. See you guys next time.